Ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise for the playing of
the Sibling Rivalry Baseball Podcast.
And here's your host, Jana, and her big brother, Jeff. And we're back after a few months off, a hiatus. Isn't that what they call it in the biz? Welcome to Sibling Rivalry Baseball Podcast Season 3 opener. Now, as has been I don't know, I guess it's turning into I don't know what to call it, but every year that we've done this, all two before this, we've said opening day. Let's do our first podcast on opening day, to drop on opening day. And in 2020, we built the podcast, we had it ready, and it caught fire and sank into the swamp because of COVID. And we ended up later on. Last year, we had it on opening day, and it really was opening day, except for nobody could come to the games. So it was like the mime version of opening day. Nothing, there was games, but there was nobody there to cheer. Or there was they were still using the piped in sound. So there was another opening day, but that was later when people could start, whatever locally they could let people in. This year, we're a week early, thanks to the lockout and the inaction. But we're here. And this was supposed to be opening day, but the real opening day is next week. So we'll do another episode for next week too. But anyway, it's cool to be back. For much of the winter, nothing really happened.
Yeah, baseball withdrawal was real. Like, I have a sweatshirt that says that, and I really, really felt it. Nothing happened. There was no stove. They had taken it out, thrown it in the dump.
All the wood was wet.
It was bad.
It wasn't burning. It was just a lot of, and you know what? You would think that because they were supposed to be doing the CBA talks,
right?
That yes, there was damp wood, so you would have at least some smoke. You wouldn't get really any fire, but there'd be some smoke from it. Nothing.
Yeah. And negotiations were pretty much non-existent during the winter. And even into the new year, it was a sad state of affairs for baseball. They
didn't even worry about, usually things like that. It's like, okay, we're in the 11th hour. They let the 11th hour come and go.
Went to like the 20th hour.
They were in overtime.
Yeah, double, triple overtime.
And the owners were hoping they were going to play NFL overtime rules. So if they scored first, they win. And of course, the play,
Yeah.
Well, we can get into all of that a little later. We got a lot of stuff. We've changed some things up, as you heard at the beginning. And we've got a really exciting new feature. We've never done this before. We've never interviewed anybody on the show.
Yeah, it's something we've wanted to do, and we did it. We just decided, let's do it.
It work. Yeah.
Yeah, we had our own CBA that we put together, and that was in it.
That was in it.
Interviews.
We have to do those interviews, and we got some other changes. The Around the League has a name change. We'll talk about that when we get to that section. And we will be kind of giving each of our favorites their due at, as week to week. Instead of always being Dodgers, Angels, we might do Angels, Dodgers. I know, revolutionary. We're changing the world of baseball podcasting. So a lot to talk about since the lockout ended, and we'll get to all of that. And we're going to talk to one of the principals of the Carolina Disco Turkeys. Which, if you're on Twitter and you're not following the Disco Turkeys, or on any social media and you're not following them, you're missing out. They are a great follow, and we'll talk to Greg Sullivan from the Disco Turkeys. And this season, we're also doing something we haven't done before. We're going to dedicate this season to someone special.
Sibling Rivalry Baseball Podcast dedicates Season 3 in its entirety to the memory of our biggest fan, and definitely a part of our DNA on all levels, our mom, who got called up this past November. She grew up a baseball fan thanks to her dad and his love of the game. She became a huge Dodgers fan when they moved to Los Angeles. She shared her love of the game and of the Dodgers and taught us to support our team, whichever one, no matter what, even if it's different than everyone else's. We salute our mom, military veteran and baseball fan, in every episode this season and in our hearts and souls forever.
Big things happening. This is the season premiere of the third season of Sibling Rivalry Baseball Podcast, and we have something completely special to start off. Since it's not opening day like we expected it to be, we have something even better. We have all the way from North Carolina, Greg, who is, and correct me if I'm wrong, the co-owner and president of the Carolina Disco Turkeys, who we found through social media. They finally got their first season under their belt just last season. They're getting ready to start their second season, and we're really excited to have you here with us to talk about what we can expect to see in the future of the Disco Turkeys. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're happy to have you. You have definitely set a tone for teams that are, I think, for all minor league and amateur teams out there as far as the social media presence. I've noticed that since you guys started and you're out there having a good time, that I've seen others, the Portland Pickles, the Savannah Bananas, all these teams now, even affiliated minor league teams seem to be picking up their game based off of what you guys have been doing. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah, thanks. That's very flattering. I think, we definitely try to, kind of be on the edge there and within reason. And I feel like that's been helpful for us. And I think having the unique name helps kind of, people associate the online personality with the Wild team name. And that's fun. But yeah, I think some of the teams you called out, like Portland Pickles, they do very well on social media. There are a few teams in our part of the country that rebranded from the Appalachian League, the Appy League, Burlington Sock Puppets, Danville Otterbots, and
Right.
Some of them are doing a good job as well. And I think we even have fun kind of playing off of them, sometimes, which is cool. Savannah Bananas, I think what they're doing with bringing out some good crowds and stuff is very exciting for the sport. And, I think they're pretty good on TikTok. I feel like maybe the Portland Pickles and us are maybe on Twitter and kind of holding down the fort there and Instagram. But it's, I do think there are a lot of strong players out there, and it's fun for the fans, I think, it's a way to interact that, we didn't do in the old days.
Yeah, absolutely. You had to do a lot of word of mouth and, people from, because we're on the other side of the country and we may have heard about you eventually, but not like social media has allowed us to do now.
Well, one thing I will tell you, I live in New Mexico, and I have a shirt. I went and bought a shirt, and I wear it. I'll go and see. We have the Isotopes are real close, and so I'll go to their games, and I'll wear the Disco Turkey shirt, and people are like, "Is that for real? Is that a real thing?" I'm like, "Yes, you got to check them out." So, trying to do my part for the Disco Turkeys. But can you tell us how they all, how did the Disco Turkeys come to be?
Yeah, I think for us, it was about how wild could we be where it really, really works with a baseball team. So there's an affiliated team in Winston-Salem, the Dash. So since they were already here, we felt like we had a lot of freedom to have a more experimental name, because like people couldn't say, well, that doesn't represent us, however, exactly how we want, because there's already a team that's kind of gone through that process. So it's like, here's another choice. You don't have to love it, but if you do, that's great. Most people have, which is cool. I mean, I guess if there is any dissent out there, it's very quiet, and they don't feel obligated to talk about it too much. Most people either just think it's fun or they really like it. So that's good for us. I think for us, the name was a lot of fun. And then especially the illustration, I worked with a designer, Britton Peck, who did a good job, I thought. And we collaborated for a long time of, just getting everything just right, and not just a logo, but like, let's come up with a whole thing. Because we think that's really important for, teams, because people have to emotionally invest in them. So like, you got to give them something to sink their teeth into a little bit. And we spent a lot of time on it, and really just like the idea of being able to speak to music, speak to baseball history with the Babe Ruth gesture. But, fans have a lot of fun. I think peacocks are kind of an underused sport animal. So people had fun with that, and they're colorful, and I mean, there's just so many layers. Like players, like very flamboyant, like kind of fan favorite type players have a personality that's kind of like a peacock, where they're like showing off. So we're nice people, but I don't think we discourage like a bat flip here and there and stuff like that. I think it fits.
Little strut here and there.
Yeah, our coaches will wear like sequin jackets. We encourage a little bit of that. We're we practice sportsmanship like anybody else, but we like to just have a good time, and I think the players get into that as part of our organization, team culture, and all that.
Well, I just read a quote recently from Ken Griffey Jr. that said something along the lines of, when you just have fun, it takes the business out and it becomes all pleasure, and how he liked to play baseball. And I get that with you guys, like you were talking about the sequin jackets, or, what is that? You guys have that bright pink jacket, that satin shiny. You guys are putting Studio 54 to shame with some of your gear there from the old disco days. That's from a fan standpoint, I want to go see that because that looks fun. From a baseball standpoint, you've got you got to mix it in, I'm sure, because you've got a lot of kids there who are trying to move on and move on to the show at some point.
Yeah.
So what was it? Did you have the name first, or did you decide to get a team, to do the team itself? How did that all come together?
I think both ideas were in the mind at the same time. It's a ton of work. It's not really I guess in theory it could be a hobby, but it would be it'd be hard to really run a team well. I mean, it's most summer wood bat teams have probably like 2 to 3 people working full time most of the year. And I think we're kind of getting that point where I'm working year round, every day, all the time, and we have some other seasonal staff and some interns and coach. The coaches recruit all year round, but I think it's cool, but it is a lot of work, and this kind of getting back to what you said originally, like setting it up was a lot of work too, and just kind of having all the conversations you have to have, and working with other teams and building relationships. It was probably a year's worth of work before
Wow, yeah, that's
yeah, a little
I could
over a year's
imagine.
worth of work before
No,
we
I had no
actually played
clue.
baseball.
When I saw just some of the stuff on your website, it's like, okay, what inspires somebody to do this and make that kind of a commitment? What's your history? Where did you start from that brought you, and your co-owners and anybody else that's involved in the building of this? Where did you guys start with this? What's your baseball background? And
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in like, any Sun Belt state is pretty talent rich because of being able to play most of the year and stuff like that. But I grew up in Georgia, which is a big producer of baseball talent. I wasn't among those talented players, but I played as a kid and stuff like that. So I've been around the game, and then always liked minor league baseball, college baseball. And then, I was a journalism major at the University of Georgia. And when you finish school, they're like, okay, every small town paper, you look and you realize half the jobs are sports editor. The other half are editor because the papers are so small in the modern era. This was even like, 16 years ago or something, but it's still like that. And I ended up covering a lot of sports, and then eventually when I worked at a larger paper in Nashville, one of the beats I was on was the Nashville Sounds AAA team. So it was a big, one of the teams that has like 10,000 fans a game. So a successful team. You get to know people, build relationships. Didn't really necessarily think at the time I would ever go on to the baseball side, but I feel like I had 2 years where I was at their ballpark almost every home game and saw kind of all the stuff they were doing behind the scenes just about, and had a sense that I didn't burn out on it, and then kind of learned a lot of aspects of it. And I've covered other sports, but I think going back to that was a big, just kind of knowing what those jobs were like just by watching people do them for so long.
Yeah.
And having a few relationships like that kind of helped. But I mean, there were several years elapsed between that and when I actually did this. It was always kind of, I'd seen some summer collegiate games back in the days, like when this wasn't really a commercial product as much. It was like just becoming like similar to a commercial product.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a lot of potential with some teams around where I lived. And, I think figuring out how to make it work, figuring out how to find a facility, which was very tough in the COVID era, which was when I was doing a lot of this initial work. Figuring out, every aspect of it, kind of knowing what I don't know, knowing what I do know, and just figuring it out. And anything I had a tough time with, figuring out who to ask and get it all done. And some of my coaches could help with some aspects of it. And just talking to other teams, it's interesting how collaborative everyone is. It's not that like a cutthroat thing. It's everyone wants the game to succeed. I think especially with summer collegiate, a team could be 20 miles away and you might think they would be a rival, but how it works is, okay, this team tends to get freshmen and sophomores, this team tends to get juniors and seniors, and it's not really about one being better than the other. It's about figuring out what your place is in the ecosystem, and you know, doing right by the players, doing right by their coaches, and just doing your part to kind of get them to where they need to go next. So I feel like that's been nice to have other teams I can talk to and see what works for them, and exchange that kind of intelligence, I guess.
Yeah, that's good when you guys can all kind of collaborate, and because that's like you said, it's good for everybody. If we all work together. What was that? There was always the cooperate and graduate. I always heard, and that sounds kind of like this. You guys all work together. You got I saw as being part of the amateur American Baseball League. I was surprised at how many players that we know, people like Oral Hershiser and King Griffey Jr., Barry Larkin, these guys, a couple Hall of Famers there that played in the league. That eventually, I'm sure you guys hope that somebody comes out of your team that has that has a bright and shiny major league career. But
Yeah.
knowing that all you guys can work together to help give all these guys a good chance, that's got to make it a little easier. Do you think now that we're kind of getting to the endemic stage of the pandemic, that it's going to be easier, or do you think it's going to get harder to do what you were doing?
I think easier. I mean, hopefully it means better attendance at games. I think last year, in a lot of ways, we were very fortunate because we weren't in our whole season really just lined up with the best part of the year from a COVID standpoint. At least at our level,
Right.
where we only played mostly in June and July. It was really just looking back at the end of the season, we're like, wow, that was good, because that could have been a lot worse from what came after, in the fall. So, I think you hope that we have that success again from that standpoint. But I also do think, yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a palpable sense of optimism in our city. We're a healthcare city, so probably a little more cautious about health, than the average Southern city. And, I think walking around lately, the last couple of weeks, even as like it's warmed back up outside, and businesses have kind of changed some of their policies and stuff like that. I think really here, the last 2 or 3 weeks is when most people have felt. I think last year there were times where a percentage of the population started to feel pretty safe. But I think the last 2 or 3 weeks here is when we've seen like a critical mass of people feeling mostly safe, if they don't have any health issues or anything like that.
Yeah, it's good that we're starting to see that all around. Hopefully, we'll be all completely back to normal. And well, I don't know if we'll ever be back to normal, but we'll be back to close to normal. And hopefully, you'll have some bigger crowds as people, see what kind of product you have out there.
Yeah, I think we will. And we had a lot of things we had to. I mean, COVID caused a lot of businesses to adjust how they run and stuff like that. One area where a fan might not really think about it, but for us, we had to be a little conservative on a few things as a new group, because we didn't know until like April or something, May maybe, that what our capacity restrictions were going to be at our games in June. So like we had to have games start at 5:30 because we had a lot of like math we had to do, like, hey, if we can only have 200 people in the facility, it's hard to justify the light bill and stuff like that. So we had to.
Oh,
We
right.
had to,
Yeah.
I mean, that's no fun. So, this year we're moving our times back, and that's going to help us tremendously. It's not even like stuff like people wanting to go home and shower after work and come out to the game at 6:30 instead of 5:30. It's, like parts of the country you guys are in, it's just really hot here in July and August. And if you got small kids or, like a grandparent or something you want to take out to the game, that might be a tough call if it's 5:30. But then when you're able to not miss any of the game and get there when the heat's gone down a little bit and the sun's gone down, I think that's a big deal. And it's like, so it's COVID affected things in terms of a certain percentage of people feeling more cautious, but it also affected a lot of team strategies that probably affected, some of these other things.
So you play or the team plays at Truist Park or Truist Stadium. I might be saying it the right.
Yeah.
I always get confused because I'm like,
Stadium.
the Braves play there, right?
Well, actually, I mean, so they're a big sponsor for the team we share the facility with, and a big presence in our town. But their predecessor company was a huge naming rights leader around the country. So they actually have the Charlotte Knights AAA team. They play at Truist Field or something like that.
Yeah.
Wake Forest in our city has their football stadium is Truist something. Our stadium is Truist Stadium. The Braves are Truist, and it's so many things. So it is we do have to sometimes put things in parentheses. So like our opponents don't show up at the wrong Truist facility if they're not from here. And there's an independent ball team in High Point, the High Point Rockers, and they play at something called Truist Point. So it's like we have a really fancy facility, but so do they. Both have Truist in the name, and they're like 15 minutes away. So we try to make sure that people that are busing in know where they're going.
That must be like for you when you were growing up in Georgia, everything's peach or peach tree or something. If you just said, yeah, it's on peach or it's on peach tree, it's like peach tree what?
Right.
Peach tree where?
Atlanta's always had that issue with giving people directions. It can be rough.
I was wondering about the logistics of sharing the stadium with a minor league team that's a high A, and we know that they've had all kinds of crazy rules that they've tried to implement. How does that work for you guys? Because you guys are not doing those things.
Yeah,
those rules.
Good question. Well, now that you say that, I hadn't thought about this, but one that we are doing is we're playing with those crazy big bases like they're using. I mean, we could have said, let's switch out the bases, but
I wondered about that.
Our coaches and no one cares. It's not a huge deal. I mean, I know some fans kind of are making fun of it on social media and stuff, but to this point, no one's complained that's been a serious person making a serious complaint. So I think, I guess we'll see as the Dash and all the other teams see what people think about it, and maybe what is it? Is it being tested for possible major league for the future, or is it? Do you know?
Well, they did it last year, in the different parks, and I think that it's kind of set after all the CBA talks that it's kind of set to hit the majors next season, the 23 season. But yeah, that was the whole thing, test it out and see. We've taken to calling most of the minor leagues the experimental leagues versus the minor leagues because, Major League Baseball has taken over using, the minors for all that stuff, including those bases, which this probably works out for you guys is that, these are things that a lot of these guys would see in the future. So if you don't have to make any big accommodation to have a bigger base to help them out or anything like that, because it's already in place, sure that works for you guys.
It is kind of cool. I mean, I wouldn't suppose many summer collegiate teams are playing with these bases. So I mean, we just kind of are. So we just weren't. We just didn't really. It's not so much a yes or no, more of just we didn't really mind. So so here we are. But no, it's good. I mean, I think the challenge is just like we can't get every holiday we want. We can't play every weekend we want to play. But I think the other side of it is a positive would be that people have habits of going to the park. So I think as a newer team, you probably get more people that will try you out. And just being in a kind of a really nice facility downtown, I think the other positive is just, sponsors will look at that and okay, this is a cool downtown business, and we can work with them. And we're close to a lot of neighborhoods that like baseball, and it works really well for us in a lot of ways. So the players enjoy the facility. I mean, I don't even know if they know about the bases yet, so I guess we can embrace them for that. But they like playing in front of crowds. There are some are wood bat teams around the country. Some do a really good job of engaging their communities and fans, and there are definitely a lot of developmental ones that are, the baseball quality is fine, but they're not really worried about fan experience and stuff like that. And most guys are coming to us because they want to feel like they're at a minor league type game or a big time college type game. So that's a lot of fun. We're able to give them that in this facility, and our city's been very supportive too. Like the community, they've been, they like the idea of having baseball pretty much every weekend in the summertime between the two teams. So I think we have some fan overlap. I'm sure some of their season ticket holders come to our games, and we probably draw some different demographics because of our name. You have people that are just like the crazy name, but I think we have a lot of the same fan base too.
So talking about the team and drawing guys in, what is the process of building your team? I mean, we know how the minors get their guys through the major league franchises and drafts and that, but you're out there kind of free agents as far as pulling in guys to come play, and it's an amateur league, so it's just a place to come and play and hone your skills. It's not a big dollar job.
Right. Yeah. It's very. I mean that's you've hit it. I mean that's the challenge, but it's we start early and make sure we get enough pitching is the big thing. But yeah, I mean I'm kind of in those trenches. Coaches are in those trenches. We're calling people we know. I mean with COVID, I think we, especially last year, less of actually going in person and scouting, more of like looking at film or talking to people on the phone and stuff like that. I think in year 2 it's a lot easier than year 1. So now people know what our name is. Year 1 players were signing with us really on the strength of the facility because they didn't know what our name was yet, what the uniforms looked like yet. So year 2, I think it's a lot easier because you have players that you can tell them to talk to so-and-so who played for us last year. You can do that kind of recruiting. And a lot of them are just doing that on their own without us asking, sending them to them. And we can show them, video from our games, and, they saw that, things like, last year we played 39 games, but like, that's a big deal to players. Like they want to know how many at bats they're going to have. And like, we probably had 40 games scheduled and probably had like 7 or 8 rainouts. And it's like, we're a team that's going to do from the front office and coaching side, do the work of like coordinating makeup games, making sure if we have to schedule new games, make sure the players get the at bats they need. Because it's a lot of, I think it's fun to build the the atmosphere and get the crowds in, but there's also this kind of role that you have of making sure you live up to whatever promises that you make on the front end with the players, because that's ultimately you've got a reputation to defend and build. And you've got to not only have the players having a good time, but you have to have the faith of their college coaches and their high school coaches that are referring them to you. Um, uh, Especially with pitchers, you don't want to overuse somebody or do anything that might cause people to have caution to send you someone the next year.
It makes sense. The developmental side of it all, and working in connection with the programs they're coming from, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm you have a coaching staff, and I think I read that is it Kirk Cabana? Is that your manager?
Kirk Cabana, yeah, he's from out on the West Coast as well. He's from the LA area. He moved out here a few years ago, and he teaches he coaches at one of the NAIA type schools, a small Christian school that's added baseball a few years ago and is really put an emphasis on growing the program. And now they've got a JV team, they've got a coaching staff. They don't look like a new program anymore now that they're 4 or 5 years in. And last year he won with his team. He was the full-time assistant there, and they went to they got very far in their national association, so in postseason. So some of our players are from small colleges like that, and I think it's really cool for them, because it's like they go from playing in small facilities with parents mostly in the crowd, and then playing in a place where you'll see hundreds of just people who live in the city and like baseball come out to your games. We do have Division I players who maybe this is like par for the course, but for a lot of players, especially this part of the country, and I imagine in California and places like that too, some of the Division II and NAIA players are Division I caliber players, but there are a lot of like scholarship limitations in college baseball. So they might be from like a working class background or something like that and want to get a full ride, and like they might be good enough to play at Stanford, but they'd be on a partial scholarship or something like that. So like they'll go to a smaller school or something. So we've got some really good players that deserve to be showcased. And like they may go to a small school and not get that in the spring, but this is kind of their chance to show they belong with the D1 guys.
I was wondering too, when does your season start? And then as a follow-up, the All-American Amateur Baseball Association has a big tournament, and I know you guys were involved in that last year. Can you tell us a little bit about that too?
Yeah, great. So our season starts Memorial Day weekend. We'll start at home with a couple games.
Nice.
And yeah, it's exciting. We kind of like I said with the sharing facility, we don't have Memorial Day, but I think we're Friday, Saturday or something like that. So, but we can still market the holiday weekend. We've got some other good dates. We mostly play Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Just makes sense with the big facility. So we try to get all those we can in the months that we're around. And we've got Father's Day at home this year. We're excited about that. And we have got some cool away games. We play a lot of the Coastal Plain League teams. We're going to the beach this year to play the Wilmington Sharks, so the players are excited about that.
It's like a field trip.
It is kind of like a field trip. Yeah, we have a day off after, so we're gonna have to like talk about, okay, who is wanting to stay in a condo and do their own thing for an overnight trip, and like we're gonna go back and play the next day, but like if a few pitchers that aren't pitching the next day want to drive separately and have a good beach trip, that's fine, So we're gonna do some stuff like that and have a lot of fun. put them in competitive situations where they'll get some good experience and show their coaches what they're doing. And and some of these teams they might play for them next year, so there's some of that involved too. And the AAA, I will say it's pretty awesome. We were involved with it last year. We went up to Johnstown, Pennsylvania, rented some vans and drove up there, and long, manageable, but I think it was a 6-hour trip or whatever, which is unusual for this type of baseball. But we stay up there for a week, roughly. So it's a little more worth the drive when you look at it that way. But it's just different, it's hard to really describe. It's almost like something from a different era. Some of the teams we play aren't really they're just as good, but they're less of a minor league type mold, I guess. They're just kind of how this level of baseball was 20, 30, 40 years ago. And this is kind of how they've always done it, so we're going up there. And it's actually pretty tough for us because a lot of the teams we're playing are kind of like all-star teams. They'll be in a league with 5 teams, and they'll be able to take the 4 best players from all the teams that didn't win their championship. So we're kind of more of an at-large type situation. So we go up representing our state, and we're just bringing who we have. We were able to get out of the pool play last year in the first year, which is great. So we went 2-1 and then got to the knockout rounds, and one of the local teams just, I don't know if we might have been a little lower on pitching, or in the 4th game, and they were really good. They've got a lot of good D2 players from Pennsylvania area, and there were probably 2 or 3 teams in that tournament that at least last year were, I felt like there was a little separation. So that's good, because it means that this year we've got a step to take, and I think we can. But it's really cool. You go up there, and it's a place that just has baseball as part of its culture. That tournament's been around since the 40s, and you guys mentioned all the famous athletes who've participated. Oral Hershiser was one you named, people like that, and so it's crazy. There were games where there were 5,000 or 6,000 people, in this medium-sized town, and I think one of the cool parts for our players, and just for me, was we kind of got adopted as everyone's second favorite team. If you didn't root for your home team, or it was almost like an NCAA tournament where there's a sweetheart of the field of every bracket, right. And we were clearly everyone's either first or second favorite team. And the games we were at, we should have been the away team because we're not from anywhere close to there. But half the crowd's rooting for us, and it's just great. And just they have all this tradition. There's a parade, and just cool stuff, like a banquet at the beginning of it where we all got to know the other teams and eat together and talk and stuff. So I think it's a cool, when so much of life is becoming business, it's cool to have something that's just oh, this is cool. This is not kind of what we're used to. This is something that's just for the sake of the game, just for the sake of having fun. So I do think it was good national exposure for our team, and probably good in the big picture of more people knowing about us, more people buying our shirts and hats and stuff. But I think at the same time, so much of it is just, it's a recruiting tool for us, because other teams don't do this. And it's also just fun. It gives, and I think for the psyche of the team, we're more or less an independent team, during our season, playing the best teams we can find. So this gives us something to be hey, let's keep working hard because we got to be in good shape for this tournament in a few weeks, So I think it helps us in so many different areas, and that's when we were a part of it, and we're looking forward to going back up there this August.
I think I want to go to
Yeah,
Pennsylvania.
sounds
during
sounds
August. We should
fun.
do
It sounded like
SRBB on the road.
Yeah,
something to do.
it's an experience. I never really spent a lot of time in that part of Pennsylvania. It's pretty. It's a lot of the towns are in kind of like mountainous, hilly places, and it's good landscapes to look at. But yeah, there are maybe 3 or so of these big, prestigious national tournaments. National Baseball Congress is another one, so some teams go to that out west. I think there's another one, but like for us, it's a stretch, absolutely, but we like that it's something we could drive to. Just the expense of, we don't play all year, so like you have to be able to figure out, okay, what's financially responsible, what's reasonable, what's not a huge logistical hurdle to have to deal with on top of running a baseball team. And it was just like it was a challenge, but it was something we were able to pull off pretty well. And I think for some of our players, it was the Southern kids. We're used to teams from the Northeast coming down to visit our colleges in February because of the weather, but like schools down here don't really ever go up there to play. So for a lot of people that may just pretty much none of our players has ever played baseball in that part of the country. So it was kind of unique in that way.
Got to open their horizons, broaden their horizons a little bit there. It's funny that you were saying that about how this feels. When I was looking at more of your team and the others that were around and seeing how it's blossoming. I think the only time I'd ever really heard of like collegiate style type summer leagues was the Cape League. Was the one that popped out, and what they did a bad movie about that. Summer Catch, that's what the name of it was. And that was about all people knew. And it's like, okay, that's cool if you live up there. But this reminded me of the times where a lot of towns throughout the country had their own baseball team. And, and you would, get the locals, or maybe you'd try to bring in a couple of ringers, give them a job locally, and then they would play ball for you. I know my grandfather played for a company team, a company hardball team in Wichita, Kansas, during World War II. And he, it was the same kind of setup, and they would play other companies or town teams. And it kind of has that feel, and that would be the golden age of baseball, and that's what I liked about how your team, the teams that you're playing, all kind of fit into that. And I think the more places you can go and just watch baseball, really is better for baseball as a whole. People get bogged down that baseball is only Major League Baseball. Right. And that's so far from the truth. I'm real close to a Little League park. There's some good baseball that takes place. Sometimes it's hard to watch, but for the most part, there's some fun baseball getting played down there by, 8 to 11-year-olds.
Yeah, since I've been doing this, I was aware that it was the case, but I think I've been really impressed with the quality of baseball at the lower, like I would say, small colleges. It's sometimes the gap isn't as big as you think it is. It could be it could be they're there because it's a really prestigious academic school as a D3, and they're there for that. It could be that it was a chance for them to go to a D2 and get more scholarship money than at a D1. It could be that maybe they're a D1 talent, but their grades aren't there, so they're at some other school. I mean, so there can be all kinds of thousands of different reasons, but we've been able to find some really good players at D1 schools and really good players at some small schools, and I think that's a good sign that that there's probably some good competitive baseball to watch in almost every corner of the country, I would guess.
So we've been talking with Greg Sullivan of the Carolina Disco Turkeys. You can find them online at discoturkeys.com. And then you're at Disco Turkeys on Twitter?
On
Is that
all
right?
of them. We're at Disco Turkeys, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Got to keep it consistent.
And then, and what comes up now? When is your, in-house deadline to have your roster built and ready to go for that Memorial Day or Memorial Weekend start?
Yeah, so we've had most of our roster done for quite a while. I think you always have to be kind of prepared to add a pitcher or two in case somebody's coach says, "Hey, my pitcher got more work than we expected late spring. Let's, give him a few weeks rest," or something like that. Or if someone gets, heaven forbid, an injury or something like that. So I think we have to be prepared to adjust on the fly. But we started recruiting in the fall. So for us, it's mostly been done. We just kind of left us a little space and pitching to add a player or two if there's just happened to be some great player available at the end. But at the time we're talking about this, that might not be the case anymore. Yeah, we've got a good roster, and we're excited to see these guys. I think we had a good roster in year one, and for a year one program especially. But I think at a certain point that'll probably level off with just wherever our niche is in the landscape. But I think we're still seeing growth in talent quality from year one to year two, and I think that might be the same case for year three. Just continue to get better, continue to build the program, and then at a certain point, we're going to be kind of wherever our level is with whatever kind of talented teams we find around us and can play against.
Do you have limitations as to how many people you can have on your roster? Is it you can only have, like, the majors, we can have 25 on the active roster. Are you hit with any of those kind of limitations, or is it something that's just in-house? Or
yeah, I would say the first part's kind of in-house. I think the AAA-BA tournament limits roster size to 20. And I think the reason they do that is because that way it keeps it financially doable because all the teams are in different situations in terms of revenue they bring in and stuff like that. And it's a way that like smaller towns and bigger cities can compete more evenly. It's a challenge building the roster because you have to make sure any kind of rules they have you're able to comply with and stuff like that. But like, for example, we have to have a certain amount of North Carolina players with a permanent address here for that tournament. So on the front end, we're asking players questions about birthdays, parents' home address that maybe some other teams don't have to deal with. But I think any league or association or whatever you're with, there's some hurdles like that. But for us right now, it's just having, even without those limitations, there'd be natural ones. Like, this type of baseball is about development and getting people better for the next level. So we can't, even if there weren't those imposed rules for that tournament, we'd still have a cap at some point where it's like, you can't have 8 catchers. You can have a lot of pitchers. You can't have 30 or 40 pitchers, So trying to find the right amount of people at different positions where players that are playing well will be able to get playing time, because I think that would be a morale issue is if you sign too many players and there were multiple players at positions that were playing well and people weren't getting to play because you'd signed too many people. So I know like where I'm from, like Georgia and Alabama, they talk about all these big football schools talk about signing quality depth and not over signing and gray shirts and all these like weird scholarship things that some of the competitive programs have. But over signings is an issue. I mean, it's like, I guess it's good if you're in a position where you could do that, which I think we are, but we're careful not to, because we talk to coaches, on the front end and want to make sure that what are your expectations for your players summer? Does he need to get work? Like say a pitcher also plays center field. Does he need to get work at both positions? Would you like to see him play in the field at least one day a week? What are your expectations? And we try to make sure we deliver. It's a lot of work sometimes coordinating all of the wish list items everyone has, but I think, we're in a pretty good spot to deliver on all that. And we've got some good coaches who are keeping an eye on these guys too.
Well, you mentioned a pitcher and a center fielder. So are there any Shohei Ohtani's on a Carolina Disco Turkey team, a possibility of a Shohei?
That would be cool. Yeah, I don't know if he's now that baseball, MLB's back, I guess we don't have a shot at getting him.
No.
Too bad. We could have just like offered somebody some hats and shirts and seen what they would, if they'd come in for a game or two. No, maybe. I mean, I think the thing is like we get a lot of younger players, so like freshman, sophomore types. So like a lot of them, maybe they're not a pitcher at their college, but if they're like a superstar region player or whatever, and where they're from, they could be like a second baseman or shortstop, and they could have been the best pitcher in their county,
Right.
But like at a D1 school, they're playing shortstop. So we get a lot of those kind of guys. And last year, just being a newer team, like we would have, if we had like 4 or 5 games in a row, there'd be days where, in the 8th inning, you'd have to bring in an outfielder to just to make sure you're not burning out your bullpen for the next day and stuff like that if you're losing by a couple of runs. This year, I don't think we're going to have to do that very much at all. But it's something you see at this level because just, team situations are all kind of different, roster size and kind of.
Sounds like major league problems to me.
Yep, it's a tough life. Yep.
Well, you guys did. You started off rough last year, as I saw, and finished strong. So hopefully you can have a little more of an even season. You feel good coming in. I mean, just from a wins and losses standpoint, I know that the biggest part of your program, like you said, is developmental. Working to get these guys the time and juggling all of that. But when you're a fan and you come out to see, you want to see a win here and there. How do you feel about that?
That's a good question. Yeah, so last year I do think you're right. Kind of we finished strong, and that's a positive. We did competed well in our national tournament, which is a good indicator that the team was engaged and they bought in at a certain point and really finished strong. And I think that's big. There were definitely rough spots, at certain points of the season, early, mid, maybe a little bit in the middle. And I think that was mostly due to being a new program and recruiting enough. We had some good pitchers, but we could have used a couple more. And by late in the season, we had them. But it's tough because you also realize that some of that's recruiting as a first year program. Some of it's just players come in waves. So if you get a player that's going to the NCAA tournament, D1, D2, D3, they could be coming in mid-June and you're already 3 weeks into your season. Happens a lot in the Cape Cod League. They have players on 2-week temporary contracts. We did a few temporary contracts last year as well. But it's a challenge. I think year 2, we're going to be a lot better on the field, and I think we'll be strong early. There still could be a couple games where like not all our players are here yet. We'll use a game we might have won otherwise. But I think the wins and losses will be better, and I think you want to win a lot at home, like you said. You want to have a winning record at home, But I think realistically, if we're like 500 on the road or something like that, that'd be awesome, because we play some tough road games. We play all those Coastal Plain League teams that have been around for 20 years often, and the expectation wouldn't be, that we beat those guys most of the time. I'd be very happy if we look similar to them and it's competitive and maybe you win a couple of those, but I don't think anyone would expect us to win all those games. But we try to really focus on scheduling really competitive teams. We're not really trying to, like a good college football team will, if they're in a decent conference, they'll schedule like 3 or 4 cupcakes for their non-conference at home so they can really run up their their record and get bowl eligible, give the fans something to be excited about, keep the coach off the hot seat. For us, I mean, we'll play a couple easy games just because we want to maybe build relationships with those other teams. But for the most part, we're scheduling the hardest teams we can find, which I think will serve us well in that national tournament, even if it's not the sexiest thing to look at a 500 record or something like that going in.
True, but that goes back to what helps the kids on the team the most, right? And tough competition is always the way to go. So.
I think so, and I think that the key for all of our guys especially is it doesn't really serve them well to be going against players throwing like 68, 72 miles an hour if they're at colleges where most of the teams they see are throwing 85. So when we at least make sure we get them a majority of our games against players that throw 75 to 95, it makes them feel like they're getting a good experience and good preparation.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you guys have a great season. We look forward to whatever's coming next. We would love to have you back to talk about maybe after the tournament, have you back, talk about how it all went, how you're feeling about this year's team and how it's going, if you're already started on for the next team for next year and what the future holds for the Disco Turkeys.
Thanks,
yeah,
Jeff.
Thanks that's okay. Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. I think one of our goals this season, especially after going through a CBA that we as fans shouldn't have had to go through as we did, is really trying to find and letting people know, our listeners know, that baseball is fun. And I love that about the Carolina Disco Turkeys, that you guys are, you're serious about baseball, but you're making it fun. And I think, as Jeff had said before, that it just opens up the world of baseball to so many different people, which we badly need because we love baseball. So thanks a lot. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
And once again, head on over to the website, discoturkeys.com, and check out all of their merchandise in the store. It's pretty irresistible. I'm surprised I don't have a bunch more stuff already.
It's time for Dodger baseball.
So we were expecting the offseason. We were expecting the hot stove. Maybe we weren't, just because we knew that the CBA thing probably wasn't going to happen right away. But we didn't expect it to drag on for as long as it did. So it turned hot stove kind of into, or at least we were led to believe it was going to be more like a microwave league, right?
Yeah.
And there was just going to be this flurry of signings. It was going to be like people rushing to get the new iPhone.
Right.
You know,
Everybody
or-
lined up on, for the Christmas deals, the
Black Friday.
Black Friday. Yeah.
There were going to be GMs brawling in the aisles at Walmart.
Yes.
And, and it didn't really happen that way before. And, the Dodgers, of course, we weren't sure what was going to happen because there were some big name players for the Dodgers that were free agents. So we didn't know, are they going to be kept? Are they going to be hitting the road? Well, right before the CBA, or right before the lockout happened, they had until midnight December 1st to make any deals, trades, signings, and a few did. And one of the first ones to go before somebody who's been with the Dodgers for a long time, Corey Seager. He exited stage left. I guess he went stage right and went to the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, to the grill. He likes playing there. Had a good.
He wants to be grilled, I guess.
I guess. Yeah. He left and he, got a big contract with the Rangers. Good for him.
Yeah, like a 10-year deal.
Yeah.
And the Rangers, and we could talk more about it later, put a lot of money into their off season just in those first couple of days. They were mimicking what everybody says, like the Dodgers and the Yankees, and of course the Mets are as far as spending money. Did it make them exponentially better? I don't know. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But so Corey Seager's out, but it was easy, kind of easy to let him go. Do you think?
Yeah, I think so, because we have Trey Turner. Right. And Trey Turner just slots right into shortstop. That's his natural position. And, I like Corey Seager. But yeah, it didn't seem like that big of a loss for the Dodgers because of Trey Turner, which if Andrew Friedman is listening, please do an extension with Trey Turner, please.
Yes.
But anyway,
he would be one that I definitely, because he's a great player, obviously, and there's just something about the way that he plays. I think he fits right in there with the Dodgers.
He
like
does.
That. So then the other question he was a big question. The other question was, we had Clayton Kershaw, Kenley Jansen, Max Scherzer, who by this time I don't think anybody really cared one way or the other if Scherzer stayed because of the whole dead arm thing to end the season.
Yeah.
But I also think that people would have been fine him being re-signed because he's still Max Scherzer. He's going to come back around. He's still top. There was just that kind of a bad taste. But it wasn't like, ooh, this is just horrible, nasty. It was more like a tart kind of, not real sure, but.
Yeah, I think I would have been fine with him coming back. But yeah, the whole dead arm and the comments that he made, and it just, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But then if he had come back to pitch, then, you just rinse your mouth out and be like, okay, we're good.
And as long as he's pitching well, there wouldn't be any issues. If he'd have come back and said, oh, my arm's still dead, everybody would be like, he's a bum, run him out of town. Why'd you spend all this money?
Boo him. Yeah.
Of course. So he doesn't come back, and he signs before the lockout as well with the Mets.
Yeah, and he got a big deal with the Mets, and so the Mets got Max Scherzer and his dead arm, and we'll see how it works out for him. I mean, you look at the Mets, and of course we can talk about this in our new segment, but Yeah, I mean, their pitching staff just 1-2 looks really good. But yeah,
Right.
so he goes to the Mets and he's not a Dodger. So like, all right, we move
so
on.
that raised questions. Will Clayton Kershaw be re-signed? What's he going to do? Because there was a lot of rumors he's going to he could re-sign. He could go to Texas to be close to home to play for the Rangers, which would have been pretty incredible for them. Or there was even a third possibility that there was talks that he might even just retire.
Yeah, there was a lot of because I think he kind of keeps his cards close to his chest. Obviously he loves the Dodgers organization. He's been with them his whole career, and Dodger fans love him. So not to have Clayton Kershaw come back, I think that would have stung more. If he had retired, it would have been like, okay. But if he had gone to the Rangers, that would have stung.
Seeing him in a different uniform would have been tough.
Yeah.
Especially the old powder blue ones they roll out, their 70s uniforms. That would have been strange to see him.
It wouldn't have looked right, but he made the right decision, and he signed with the Dodgers 1 year with the Dodgers. So he's back, and everyone's happy. Now, we did not mention, we also had Chris Taylor, who, to me, out of everybody, if he hadn't signed as a Dodger, the Dodgers had not done everything possible to get him back, the fans would have been really upset. I think more so than like Seager or Scherzer. Yeah.
We went, I think, people, when Chris Taylor re-signed, I think that we went full San Diego and had a parade.
We did. It is true. Now, it's nice to know, too, he re-signed, and it wasn't for, Scherzer dollars, but that's not who Chris Taylor is. He wants to play baseball. And he later, in just probably, I think last week or something, he came out and said, I always want to be here. I wasn't going to leave.
Right.
So yeah, it would have been like, I'm not leaving. Well, you don't have a locker. I don't care. I'm still here.
I like that. I'll just sleep out on the field. I'll be there when you get there, because I'm sleeping at second. I'm sleeping in the outfield. Wherever you want me to play, that's where I'll sleep. And pitching me a little tent out there. I think too that even though technically that wasn't the biggest signing of the offseason for the Dodgers, I do think it was more significant because of what he brings to the table as a whole than what turned out to be the biggest and probably the most excruciating process. Because we're waiting for things to happen, and we were all, it's like I was told we were like what's his name? What in Office Space? I can't remember his name, like Melvin or Marvin or whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
I was told I could keep my desk here, and do you have my stapler? It was, we were told that there was going to be fast action. Like we said, it was going to be a brawl over all these players, and it really moved like molasses. In fact, we started talking about that it was more like there's collusion among the owners to keep prices down and say, nah, we're not really that interested in people, because there's a couple of the free agents that took a while to come off of the market, even after a couple people of bigger names signed. And in fact, the one that everybody put at number one was one of the last ones to sign.
Yep.
And then for like a week, the Dodgers were all in on Freddie Freeman, which they'd been rumored, and a lot of talk about, would Freddie Freeman go to the Angels because he's from Orange County, grew up an Angels fan, his family still goes to Angels games. Would he come to the Dodgers because they're also home area? Would he stay with the Braves? And as the time went, we saw with Freddie Freeman was the Braves went and traded for Matt Olson from the A's.
And then gave him an extension.
Right. And still no word on,
We still didn't know.
It seemed like the Yankees, who were in on him, signed Anthony Rizzo. Still nothing.
Yeah.
And
I think every team was in on Freddie Freeman. It seemed like, I mean, the Blue Jays.
Right. Their name
the Red
came up,
Sox.
and then the Blue Jays in all that traded for Matt Chapman from the A's.
Yeah.
Which means that Vladdy isn't going to move from first to third like rumored, so that Freddie Freeman can play first. So finally, after everybody I think this is what did it. Everybody on Dodgers Twitter, and everybody, even if you weren't a Dodger fan, everybody just said, whatever. We don't care.
Yeah. Get Kevin Pillar. Come on, just sign him.
You know what? We
Who
got,
else?
and
Jake Lamb.
I think they had, and they did. And they did, both of them.
Yeah.
And they did on MLB, they were doing, the top 10 from different positions. And when they looked at it, they had in the top 10 first baseman, Freddie Freeman was number 2. Max Muncy was number 4. So it's like, if we don't get the number 2, we still have the number 4.
Yeah.
But then we're getting word from like Max Muncy's going, no, I like second. Second's my favorite.
Yeah, it's the best.
It's my favorite. Make hitting your favorite, Max.
Yeah.
And share that with Cody Bellinger, please. Anyway, so, there was all this talk about how they would love to have all the players, Freddie Freeman. And then we found out, too, that during Mookie Betts' wedding, like 4 or 5 of the players, led by Justin Turner, left the reception where who was it that there was
Nelly?
Nelly.
I think, yeah.
That's right. He was stomping around in his Air Force Ones with some country grammar. And they went out and called Freddie.
Yeah. So don't forget about us.
Don't forget. And Freddie, I think Freddie said,
don't you forget about me. Oh, sorry.
And Freddie said later that that he had more calls in a day from like Justin Turner and Andrew Friedman than he got all offseason from the Braves.
Yeah, I think he said that he had 2 calls from the Braves.
And Freddie Freeman wanted to go back to Atlanta. He even gave them deals that were very close to what he got with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Oh, spoiler. The Dodgers signed.
Yeah. If you didn't already know, the Freddie Freeman is now in Dodger blue. Yeah. And that whole thing, I watched the press conference when they introduced Freeman, and, he's excited to be there. But I think there was some sadness, too, for him because he'd been with the Braves organization 15 years and always thought he was going to, finish out his career. He'd be a career player in Atlanta. Obviously, fan favorite. He's fan favorite not only in Atlanta, just I think everywhere. He just has that personality. He's like, you have the ambassador at first base. He's just always smiling. And now we do know when Justin Turner got on base what that conversation was.
Right.
Hey, come over here. We've got Dodger dogs, or whatever.
I don't think he was doing that because it's not Farmer John anymore.
Oh, that's right. Darn. Well, we
that
got better
was like
uniforms.
Big announcement from the Dodgers, and a lot of Twitter was like, "Farmer John dogs coming back."
Yeah, that was been exciting.
Like that was the biggest thing. So we got Freddie Freeman.
Yeah,
we really have the Dodgers have a modern day murderer's row, like. Going back to the old Yankees lineup with Gehrig and Ruth and those guys, they really have. When you look, they've always had a strong lineup where it was hard to find a weak spot in there. And we'll address where the weak spot is coming up here, if not today, in the next episode. But when you look at it top to bottom, it's going to be tough to get around this with Mookie, Freddie Freeman. You figure there's 4 MVPs on this team. Clayton being the only non-hitter.
Mm-hmm.
And now he doesn't even have a chance to be a hitter because we have the universal DH. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the changes coming up when we get to the renamed. It's not necessarily a new section, but a old section with a new name.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Anyway,
and one thing we didn't mention with the Dodgers, so we got Freeman, and then right after Freeman is signed, who signs Kenley Jansen? Who I think that the Dodgers wanted him to come back. From everything I've heard, they had offered, I think, at least 2 years. Don't know the money terms, but they were going to have to do some reshuffling here and there. But they wanted him to come back, and then he signs a 1-year deal with his team that he grew up rooting for, the Braves. So then it just becomes drama because it's like, oh, well, you got Freddie Freeman. Well, we're taking Kenley Jansen. But it's not really a good comparison. So
yeah, it's. But yeah, they got somebody that we loved here and had been around for a long time, and the players were sad to see him. I know Justin Turner posted 900 pictures of him and
they
Kenley
were
Jansen.
best buds.
People were posting all the pictures of Kenley Jansen when it looked like he was just barely out of high school and a Dodger. It was very young looking. And he and Kirsch had been there together for all those years. I honestly thought he was going to leave, but I thought he was going to go to Miami.
Yeah, I was hoping, I thought, maybe he'll come back because I thought there's a good chance he'll come back. But I also thought if he does, he probably will leave just because there seemed to be, I'm not saying that I don't want to say he's tired, but he just maybe needed new scenery, something different than, how, you're somewhere for a long time and you're like, the grass is greener kind of thing.
Well, to be fair, the grass is greener in Atlanta because they have the humidity.
It is.
And there rains there. We don't really get a lot of rain here.
That is true. Right. We don't even really have grass. So.
Right. Just you have, and a lot of people here have similar yards to yours. Yeah. Although they choose to have that type of yard, it's not just what is thrust upon them.
Right. Exactly. So, so that'll be interesting. Kenley Jansen in a Braves uniform this season.
It'll be interesting. Yeah, you see that because we'll actually see him come play. Mm-hmm. One of the others out of the bullpen that we lost this season, which I really thought we were going to get back, Joe Kelly. Is now playing on the south side of Chicago.
Yeah, that's the baddest
part of town. So Joe Kelly's in the right place.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that one, I think between the two, if I had to choose, Kenley Jansen and Joe Kelly, Joe Kelly. There's something about Joe Kelly. He's a good pitcher. So, and I had heard, and he had said that there was mutual, but it could have come down to contract terms. I don't know.
That didn't really,
that never came out. So so we don't have Joe Kelly, and but they do have Fight Club in the AL Central.
And
now.
We'll talk about why that is.
Yes.
Coming up in the newly named Around the League segment.
Yes. The Dodgers, though, with pitching, they got Freddie Freeman, and that's great. Walker Buehler's going to be the opening day starter on against the Rockies at Coors Field. So your opening rotation, or your the starting rotation, according to Dave Roberts, who also was re-signed, got a
3-year extension finally.
Yep. And it's going to be Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, Julio Urias, and then Andrew Haney and Tony Gonsolin. And I'm not sure where they'll slot Gonsolin has looked good this spring, looked a lot better. We found out last season that he was having some shoulder issues and was out, but he's looking good. Andrew Haney, I don't know. I mean, he was signed to be a starter, and that's what they're planning to do with him.
Well, he was another one that got picked up in the offseason, as a free agent.
Yep.
I was kind of surprised by that, that they would go with it. Maybe they think that he's somebody they can really. That was the most Angel-like signing, because Dodgers don't usually sign projects like that. They sign proven, and then or they work through like they've done with Tony Gonsolin.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've done with other pitchers that were in their system. I'm sure that Dustin May, if he wasn't still rehabbing off of Tommy John, would probably have been in the mix and may have been in that spot. The question now for the Dodgers is what happens with Trevor Bauer once his fate is decided, because right now they're still on the hook for his money.
Yeah. And I think that is probably the biggest thing that's holding them back from, looking at these other, I mean, they picked up some pitchers, but they're not really anybody, they're decent.
They got a lot of pieces.
Yeah.
That could come into something or may not. They signed quite a few people to minor league contracts.
Mm-hmm.
We mentioned Kevin Pillar a little bit ago. He signed with a minor league contract, and might very well, depending on what happens with a couple of players, could make the team. The Dodgers have proven that they just traded Matt Beatty, who they had DFA'd. Luckily, they were able to trade him, and somebody would have picked him up. But they really didn't get much for him. But he's now a Padre. I'm sorry for him, but if he gets to play more, he gets to do that and become a great player. Great. But they got rid of him because he wasn't as versatile as you have to be for the Dodgers. They have the gold standard. They have Chris Taylor, who plays every position and probably could catch if he had to. Definitely could probably pitch if he needed to.
Yeah.
But you can move him to the outfield. You can put him in almost any infield position. And they don't. The one thing they didn't have a need for anymore was another first baseman.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've now got Freddie Freeman. Max can play there. Cody can move into first base. Edwin Rios is back.
Mm-hmm.
So you got him for third, and he can play first.
Yep.
So there was an overabundance of that. So he just was.
Well, yeah, and the guy that they got a minor leaguer from the Padres, who in college played infield and was a pitcher, and the Dodgers are going to convert him back to a pitcher.
Huh.
So that just shows you, they weren't interested in his infield or abilities.
We got plenty of those.
Yeah.
We got all those we could use.
Yeah. And look what they did with Kenley Jansen. He was a catcher, and now look at him. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see with the Dodgers and what's going to happen with Bauer, because he just, he's still in court. He's still, doing a lot of that.
There were no charges, no formal charges, no criminal charges against him. They chose not to. LA County chose not to file any criminal charge. Yeah, they extended out his suspension, or not suspension, but
administrative leave, I guess,
until mid-April. They're still, and I think they probably could have still been looking into things even during without contacting him. They still haven't really talked to him. He says he's willing to cooperate now, but I think, like I said, he's trying to bolster his case any way he can to avoid that. The Dodgers benefit if he's suspended, especially for half the season, because that's half of his pay that they're not going to have to pay, and it doesn't count against them.
Right.
Which makes it easier to, maybe trade for one of the A's pitchers is still around, Montas or Manea or something like that. So one last thing before we head over to Angeltown and see what happened there in their offseason. The Dodgers once again re-signed or re-upped, however you want to do it, Andrew Tolles, who hasn't played since 2018. We talked about him here and having mental health issues. We didn't even know what was going on with him, and then he got arrested for sleeping behind a FedEx building at an airport in Key West, Florida. They just tried to get him to move along, but he wouldn't, so they ended up having to arrest him. They continued to sign him at, I guess not the league minimum anymore, but still $700,000 a year. But it's less about the money that he signed for. It's more about that he continues to have access to health care and mental health services, and that's why they continue to do it, which gets them a lot of points with a lot of people. It's very cool that they're still willing to do that for somebody, and he's somebody I think that he would have been definitely probably a solid left fielder. The everyday left fielder had things not gone sideways with him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're looking at an interesting, the big blue machine.
Yeah. Looking to see how it rolls out.
That's it.
Yeah.
And Dave Roberts put it all out there on the line and said, we're going to win the World Series this year. So we'll talk to you again about that come October, and hopefully another championship for a whole season's worth of play, not just the 2020 season's worth. Well, as happens every spring, Angel fans are hopeful that this could be the year Mike Trout makes it to the playoffs. However, not as hopeful as I'd seen in the past. When we hit the offseason, the question was, and now everybody was rejoicing that Albert Pujols was finally off the books. So there was going to be all this extra money because he had made, the Angels paid, $24 million of his salary, or thereabout $25 million of his salary last year, while the Dodgers paid minimum. So everybody thought, okay, that's $24 million we're going to put back in. That's going to help. We're going to be able to get something. And they didn't really. Before the lockout, made a couple of signings, but it wasn't an inspiring offseason for the Angels. And of course, every year, what happens at the end of the year? We all say we needed pitching. And of course, at the end of this last offseason, we're like, we need Trout and Rendon to be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
There were, I was looking through the transactions from the Angels, and right at the end of the season, they took like 6 or 7 players off the 60-day DL. That was Trout, Rendon, Upton. These were all these players that were on there, the pitchers that were on there. Griffin Canning was a pitcher who had been, we expected things out of. They were all on the 60-day DL. So there was a lot of issues. They really, when you look at it, for what they didn't have, if you'd have put those players back in the mix, they might have ended up having a much better season. With the Ohtani and his MVP season. But the one thing that Joe Madden even came out and said, Perry Manassian, the GM, said, all while Artie Moreno was off in a corner shaking his head going, you guys forget who you work for. About signing some big name pitchers. Now, they didn't get Max Scherzer, but they weren't going to pay $43 million a year or whatever it was that he got. They weren't going to get them. So they went out and they grabbed Noah Syndergaard, previously of the Mets, 2 years removed from Tommy John surgery.
That's a qualifier, right? For the Angels. Although I will say, I know this is Angel segment, but the Dodgers are looking that way too. I mean, the pitching staff, Tommy John, elbow, Tommy John.
Right.
They're all in there. So something's
So
going on.
yeah. So not. I mean, on one side of it, it's like cool. Thor has been a great pitcher in the past, but
Yeah.
he pitched 2 innings last season, and they weren't good innings.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, he's coming back off Tom John. Okay, so we're going to take a flyer and gave. Well, I said there was 24 million available. 21 of it went to Noah Syndergaard. And it's like, okay, if he can make this happen, one of two things is going to happen. He's going to take his successful season and go to another team, or he's going to end up like the players like him that we've had in the past that we're like gave that shot to. Now he's got a lot of upside. He's only 29, and we signed him before the lockout just for a year. So let's see what happened. And in a spring, spring outing, he pitched one time. He pitched in a minor league game, and then he recently made the Cactus League debut and pitched pretty well. But
yeah, you look good, pretty good. Well, you also have it's spring training. But you also have Rizal Iglesias came back, which
that
was
the
a big
biggest
one
right there. Yeah.
Yes. And you added Archie Bradley. I know you're excited for that. And I mean, he's not a starting pitcher, but he's not bad.
He did end the season though last year with the Phillies with an oblique problem.
Oh, didn't they all?
Yes, it was Tommy John or oblique.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, the Angels in pitching, I read an article by Ken Rosenthal on the Athletic, and he says kind of sort of likes the Angels, kind of had made an admission that he kind of sort of likes the Angels to maybe make the playoffs this year. Because of, you have Trout is back, Rendon is healthy. So those two guys, we've seen what, Jared Walsh has done, David Fletcher, who's probably one of the most underrated baseball players in all of baseball. I mean, he's so good. And he got an extension for, last season, which was exciting, but nobody, only Angels fans were rejoicing about that. And then you had some off-season sign, like I mentioned, Archie Bradley, Austin Romine, catcher. Where does he fit in?
Was signed to a minor league contract.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, now see,
yeah,
this brings up
that's
a
true.
little craziness about the catchers and that with the Angels. They signed him back up, but the Angels and Angels fans were highly upset because nothing happened after the lockout for a little while. And their very first signing after the lockout was Kurt Suzuki, 38-year-old catcher for a year. And yeah, he only signed for, a couple million. So it's not like a big hit or anything, but he doesn't have much of a bat, but he's a veteran. He's been in there, it was just, I didn't find it to be as bad of a signing, because Max Stassi was the guy, as long as he's healthy, and he was another one who has injury issues, but he just got an extension. He was in arbitration this year, so they got that taken care of and then gave him a 3-year extension. So they've locked him up. He's not a free agent next year now. Locked him up for 3 more years, and he's got some pop to his bat, and he's going to be the everyday guy. Matt Thaiss, who they've been trying at third base and other infield positions, they finally put back he was a catcher coming up. They moved him back, so they had some more depth at catcher. I don't think he makes the team because you've already got Stassi and Suzuki that'll be, there. and you signed Austin Romine. So even if you send him, he stays in the minors. You have him as a backup, and he's got major league experience. And then last year we used Taylor Ward, who is another guy we might see actually get an outfield position now, who started out as a catcher and even caught a game last year when some weird things happened and they were without.
Yeah, I think, well, you mentioned Kurt Suzuki, 38-year-old catcher. I think his signing and what you said is perfect. He's a veteran, and it's the veteran presence in the clubhouse. It's almost kind of like the same, like what Albert Pujols did for the Dodgers last season,
Right.
having that in the clubhouse. So it's good to have him in there. I like Kurt Suzuki, but yeah, 38-year-old catcher. I can't even imagine what his knees are like, but
well, and luckily he doesn't have to catch every day. You've got Max Stassi, who hopefully will play a lot more. The other thing that's come up is, obviously we really didn't get any. We signed Noah Syndergaard, and then we also signed Michael Lorenzen, who has mostly been, he started before, but mostly he's been a reliever.
Yeah.
And he's slotted in to be a starter. So we'll see how that goes. He's kind of like the guys of the past, Matt Harvey, Trevor Cahill, Julio Teheran, those guys. We'll see what happens there. Syndergaard, maybe a little better upside. We're hoping that Patrick Sandoval finally has a complete season. He's shown more promise than not, but what happens? The starting pitch is the problem. They really built what looks like a pretty decent bullpen now. You mentioned Archie Bradley. What's his name? Ryan Tepera, who was a Philly last year. He's in there. Aaron Loop, who was a free agent. He was with the Mets.
Oh, yeah.
He had out of over 56 innings, he had a .95 ERA. His whip was about the same. So 0.94. So, you got some guys, you built up the bullpen. It looks like Jaime Barria, who has been a starter in the past few years, might end up in the bullpen. Griffin Canning's back on the DL. He's on the 60-day, so no idea when he's coming out of it. Chris Rodriguez, who was a rookie last year, showed some promise, had some good outings. He's also back on the 60-day. So those are two younger arms. Reed Detmers maybe they're going to go with the 6-man rotation instead of the 5 to not have as much pressure on any of them. Ohtani, who will be your opening day starter, Syndergaard, Sandoval, Lorenzen, Jose Suarez, who's had the more upside between him and Barria, and then probably Reed Detmers, I would think. But they were also, I think that Jansen Junk didn't really, hasn't pushed himself to that spot. Some we got last year from the Yankees. So, and then picking up, this, everybody was pushing about maybe Carlos Correa as a shortstop or even Trevor Story coming. And of course, they didn't spend any money on the shortstop. They needed to get stronger defensively there. But it's like, is David Fletcher going to be the shortstop or is he going to be the second baseman? They picked up Tyler Wade from the Yanks off of waivers. And he's been, they got him on a 1-year deal and avoided arbitration with him. He's in the mix to be a shortstop and's had a pretty decent spring. They picked up Matt Duffy, who was, I think, with the Royals previously. Yeah. And he may very well be like the second baseman. You put Fletcher at short. And then Andrew Velasquez, who was also a Yankee. They picked up him off of waivers. And, so who's going to be the opening day shortstop? Not sure. And then whoever doesn't, probably, I think it's Fletcher at short, Duffy at second. based on how things are going. But so there's the on paper, I'm with Rosenthal. The Angels, they're 1 through 3. Ohtani, Trout, Rendon, and then Walsh.
Mm-hmm.
Now the question comes at that is they're also talking about platooning first base because Walsh has a hard time with lefties, and they've been playing Justin Upton at first base. Joe Adele's had a great spring, and he really looks like he's got it coming together. So we'll see, and we'll talk more about really how the those pieces come together next week. And as we kind of more preview once we know the rosters, which will be up 28 instead of 25 to start the season, how they look, what it's going to come together. But it's cautious optimism. Like I said, on paper, they look like they could be one of the teams. And now you have 2 more teams, in the playoffs. I just, can they? Sure. Will they? I think it's all going to come down to the pitching. And what we've seen in the past is starting pitching starts off slow or poor, and the bullpen is great. And the bullpen has to carry the Angels through the first month, and then they're all worn out, and the starters have to do it. And sometimes they're okay, sometimes they can, but when they can't, the bullpen's not able to back them up, and then we fall in a hole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, pitching definitely will be the thing to look for our 2 teams. Yeah. I mean, definitely the Angels have always had that, the pitching, like, where is it? And I think with the addition of Noah Syndergaard, you have Thor, and maybe that makes, sometimes that one addition can really change things in the bullpen. On the pitching staff, not the bullpen, but the pitching staff as a whole. Right. And you've got Ohtani, who said, yeah, I had a good year last year. I'm just going to keep getting better. I want to get better. Like, what?
Well, and you wonder, will having Trout and Rendon back, will it take some of the pressure off of him and allow him to get better? Will it cause, how they pitch them differently now? I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see.
It'll be interesting for sure.
So
I was just mentioning the Angels are going to wear their City Connect jerseys this season. Last season, we saw the premiere of the City Connect jerseys. We had the Giants and the Dodgers and the Cubs, and I'm trying to think, was it the Mets? Maybe, I don't. But anyway, there were a set number of teams. And now this season, there's another set number of teams. The Angels is one of the teams that will get to wear their City Connect jerseys or their uniforms on June 11th. So be fun to see what those, what will they have on it?
That's the problem with the Angels. I mean, I don't know how much involved they are with that, but it's just like they play in Anaheim. Are they going to do something Los Angeles like, since that's what their name is?
Right. That's what I wondered.
And then we saw the disaster that the Giants city, the Dodgers worked out well. Some of the others did. The Cubs was great. Wrigleyville is
I think that's
awesome
my favorite.
That's one that the Los Dodgers, Dodgers was that was a good one. So we'll see. There's a lot that we're gonna see.
It'll be fun. We'll have a little fashion critique on SRBB with all of the City Connect jerseys, because I think the first ones to come out will be the Nationals. So we can talk about that when they come out. But I'm curious to see what the Angels, you can't have Mickey Mouse on there because they're not owned by Disney.
You could make a deal with Disney to do that.
You could. What is in Orange County would, because if they do the LA, then there's going to be backlash from the Dodger fans, and it'll just be, who knows? It'll be fun. It's going to be fun to see what they put on.
We may need to have a fashion expert on to talk about the uniforms, and then talk to like a mediator about how they're going to mediate the Los Angeles thing.
Right. Exactly.
All right, we want to introduce a new name to the Around the League segment. We've changed the scope of this segment, and we'll tell you why. Just a second. It's now called simply Around Baseball. And what inspired this was we have the lockout going on. And all of a sudden, all of these minor league teams, because the minors were still going to happen, were out front saying whether there's baseball, whether there's Major League Baseball or not, our opening day is still April whatever.
Yeah.
And some now will be overshadowed by the fact that Major League Baseball will be opening the same day they were opening their season. The minor leagues usually open around, the first week of April, about a week later. And I was excited about that. There's, a lot of people are like, baseball's back. And my response was, baseball never left.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of baseball out there to watch that does not involve MLB teams.
Exactly. And as we talked earlier with Greg Sullivan of the Carolina Disco Turkeys, they play in a summer league. They're only playing from around June through August because that's the time frame they have, because all of their players are amateurs, generally college players. So they have that much time to continue playing. They're all trying to make their way to MLB. But when you think about it, there was all those leagues, all the independent leagues. It was the place to go see baseball. Everybody gets caught up with Major League Baseball is baseball. Okay, yes, it's the highest level of baseball. It is pro baseball at the best. If you took the top, I don't remember who tweeted this or wrote this, but somebody said, if you take, I think it was one of the athletic writers, did this, but if you take, no, it wasn't. It was Jeff Passan from ESPN who said, if you take the owners, because there was all the talk during the lockout, and replace them with 30 better businessmen, the sport, could get better, or at least the ownership side could get better. If you took 1,500 of the best players away from baseball and replaced them with the next 1,500, baseball's not going to get better. It's going to suffer. So, him making the point, you gotta consider where the players are coming from, because they're the best in the world. And so we got to thinking. It was I tweeted it. I think it was like, down the street is a little league ballpark. I want to go down there and watch. I may see some future major leaguers playing there. I'm a few blocks from a high school. Go see the high school team play. There's colleges here. I can go see where Jackie Robinson played college baseball down in Pasadena. It's not that far away. There's a lot of options. And throughout the summer, there's all the summer independent, collegiate type leagues like the Disco Turkeys, and all the teams that they can play. You've got, I want to go up to Portland to see the Portland Pickles play.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Been seeing some cool videos of the Savannah Bananas, and they're like the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball with the stunts that they're pulling. And, so it was like, don't get caught up that, Major League Baseball's off, so there's no baseball. We're without it. No, there's plenty of baseball. Baseball never leaves you. You can go out and play catch. You're playing baseball. You can go out and get a team together and play in your backyard or whatever. Baseball doesn't leave you. The major leaguers, that's another story altogether. So that's what inspired Around Baseball. And we're not just going to talk simply about what's happened around the league, but we'll talk about some of the other big things that might be going on. In fact, why don't we start it off? Let's talk a little college baseball. I know that when the season started, big things were afoot for the Texas Longhorns. They were the preseason #1. Their pitching staff was supposed to be second to none. And now that we're a few weeks in, there's been some changes along the top of the college ranks. So as of I think as of March 27th, this was the top 10.
So you got #1, Tennessee, and then Arkansas, if you remember last season, they were big in, staying up there in that top 5. Then #3, you have Oregon State, Virginia at 4, and then Florida State at 5. And then Oklahoma State at 6, Texas Tech at 7, and our surprise, #8, Texas. So they were #1. They were for a while, and they're down at 8. Vandy and Ole Miss at 9 and 10. And Vandy and Ole Miss last year, they were duking it out with each other. And so a lot of SEC teams, we see that quite a bit. Texas got stunned by Texas State a couple of weeks ago, and
they dropped to 8 from #2.
Yeah.
And then Ole Miss as well was #1, and they're now #10. They took a tumble as well.
Yeah, so it'll be, one of our favorite events is the College World Series in Omaha. That'll be coming up here in June. So we'll keep up on what's going on in college baseball. But right now, those Volunteers are #1.
Tune it in. It's still on. I think that we were expecting to see more college, more other, and maybe even some minor leagues showing up on TV. If the lockout, if there had been a bigger, if more of the season had been postponed or canceled. To be perfectly honest, I was in the camp of go ahead and cancel the season. I don't care. I don't need you guys to enjoy baseball, as I was saying. But I think that that a lot of the players wanted to play, but they were staying strong with one another and listening to what the veteran players and that were saying. I think the owners finally got the clue that the fans were ready to just turn around and walk away. Find other sources, not only in baseball, but just in general. There's just, as it's always said, there's just too much out there that is available for people to do. And as there's not a captive audience as much as we were over the last few years, and baseball never really took the time to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
They continue to restrict more and more how you view. And in this season, we'll talk about it next week, how it's going to be harder to watch certain games because of the way that baseball continues to show that their #1 goal is to make more money.
Yeah, that's it. And it's not really growing the game, which is why I was excited to see, and they are still out there. The minor league teams, listen, we're still here. The summer bat leagues, those college leagues, Cape Cod has, I think, is probably one of the most well known, but and the college ball, that it's out there. I know I was disappointed that it didn't happen, but 75 years anniversary of Jackie Robinson, and that might not have happened, if they weren't able to get their act together. And so one of the first things I did was get tickets to go see the Albuquerque Isotopes play. and on Jackie Robinson Day, because I think that's important to celebrate, and also to support the Isotopes. I go to quite a few of their games anyway, but yeah, so that was that. And then, finding out when the Lobos are playing and, just looking for those. And I also had an invitation from someone that I know whose grandson plays baseball. They're not baseball fans. They don't. And they're like, can you come with us to a game and explain the rules? So that might be in my future.
Nice. And that's, I wrote it down on my little sheet here for the show as a call to action. And it's go out and not only support, but celebrate baseball at the lower levels, because that's where, if you love baseball, you want to see it continue to grow, it's going to happen down there. Go out and let those kids know how, how much you're excited to see them play, and get them excited about it. Take in a high school game if you can, college games, whatever. You can't go wrong with all of that. And you know what? For some fans out there, you might see better baseball than you are seeing with the Orioles or the Pirates, or some of those teams that just aren't spending any money.
So the AAA teams, they are actually expanded their games to 154 games this season. So lots of baseball to be seen. And before, they had the Western League, just geographical names, just where they're located, Western, Eastern league names. And this year, the historical names for the 11 leagues that comprise Major League Baseball's 30 clubs. So this is AAA, before they had AAA East, AAA West. The Pacific Coast League is back.
Yay.
And the International League, and the Eastern League, and the Southern League. And so the Texas League. The California League, the Texas League, that's been around since 1888. 1888. That's all coming back. So I was excited to see that because, and again, it just goes to show there's so much baseball out there for everyone to enjoy, whether it's Little League, Single A, college ball, Single A, Double A, Triple A, whatever. It's out there.
Right. Yeah, it's perfect. There's just so much. So go see some lower level action. I used to go to, there was a boom with the California League and teams in the southern section. Most of the California League was like Bakersfield and North. And so when they got those, the Angels had a team in Lake Elsinore. I used to go there often to see games. I got to see King Griffey Jr. play in Single A ball in San Bernardino when I was stationed over there. And it's just, you don't know who you're going to get to see or who's going to come through there. It's it was fun. When the Isotopes, before they were the Dodger AAA team, so that was fun to saw Jock Peterson before the Pearls, and he was hitting them out of the park, and saw some other guys that, Trevor Story. And it's cheaper because I can tell you, I'm sitting behind the dugout and my seat only cost $18. So that's
there
not
you
bad.
go.
Normally you go, it's going to cost you $100 or more, $200, depending on what stadium you go to.
Yeah.
It's going to cost you a lot of money to sit behind a dugout or behind home plate. And you can do it at minor league games and have the best seat in the house. And they're usually not as big as far as like your seating areas. So you can sit in lots of places and have a really good view of the game, and you're right there next to it. So, all right, let's take a look at what happened in the off season with the Microwave League. There were some players who signed before. We talked about Corey Seager. We talked about Max Scherzer, Rangers and Mets, respectively. The Rangers were out of the gate and spent like $500 million in like one day when they also
Yeah.
picked up Marcus Simeon,
Mm-hmm.
who was in that because this was the year of the shortstop. And you had Seager and Simeon, who was technically a shortstop. He's playing second base with the Rangers. You also had Carlos Correa, who was supposed to be top of that list. Javi Baez, who signed before and went to Detroit. Another shortstop that wasn't as high on the list but has been solid was one of our favorites. You are our fellow alumni of Western Oklahoma State College, and also he was an Angel for a lot of times. That'd be Simba Andrelton Simmons is a Cub. He left the Twins. Some big trades happened afterwards, where we saw Isaiah Kiner-Falefa leave Texas, go to Minnesota on his way to becoming a Yankee.
Yeah, he's in
So-
Minnesota for just a quick minute.
And so there's been some changes. We're going to see some different looking teams. Speaking of Carlos Correa, one of the last of the big name free agents to actually be signed, thinking he was going to go one of the first. And everybody thought where could he go? And of course, everybody's talking, well, could he come to LA, to either the Dodgers or the Angels? Figured the Angels were a better place just because of their need for a shortstop. Would he go back to Houston? Were the Yankees interested? It all came up, and then he ended up in the Twin Cities.
Yeah, and it seems that the biggest reason that he's there are because there's some really good hamburgers there called Juicy Lucy's. It's and he's gearing up for that. But yeah, I really thought that he would just go back and be, an asterisk, and he asked, who's going to give Altuve hugs now? That's
Right.
kind
Who's
of
going to
sad.
console him when people
Yeah.
are making fun of him?
So
So yeah, lots of, when you look through, there were some big names, but it didn't go like we said earlier, it didn't go as quickly as we thought it would. The Mets made some big moves. They picked up Mark Canha, who had been with the A's, solid outfielder. I think the NL East got the Braves still look like the team to beat, but when you look at some of the moves, Atlanta made a lot of moves and picked up guys. And then Philly, Kyle Schwarber went to Philly.
Yeah, Nick Castellanos is in Philly. And then another guy that we didn't mention is Chris Bryant, that sat for a while, and then he chose, of all places, the Colorado Rockies, which left a lot of people scratching their heads. I don't know. I just think, hey, he's won a World Series and he can now choose where he wants to play, and he wants to play in Denver, and more power to him. So, I don't know. I know I'm going to admit this because I'm a Dodger fan and they're in the same league, but I do have a little bit of a soft spot for the Rockies. Maybe because the AAA team is the affiliate, but yeah, they're always kind of the people that they get picked on all the time. And so when Chris Bryant signed with them, it was like, why would he do that? Well, he gets to play in a fun ballpark.
Well, he said he likes to play there.
Yeah, and so that's it.
He wanted to go where he liked to play. So more power to him. I think a lot of it is that people were looking like, and why did the Rockies management sign him for, because then they wouldn't hold on to Nolan Arenado. Well, you can't blame it on one side or the other. This was, that was a two-sided thing. Nolan wanted to leave. Chris Bryant wants to be there. They're not paying Chris Bryant anywhere near what they were going to pay Nolan Arenado.
No.
So.
Well, and that's right. And that's the thing I think people need to look at. That was a two-sided thing. And Trevor Story, who I'm sure a lot of, of course, Rocky fans wanted to keep him, but he didn't want to stay. He didn't want to stay in Denver. and probably, test in the waters. He ends up going to the Red Sox, moving to second base because Xander Bogaerts is at short. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's some dynamics going on in the Rockies organization, maybe some fractures there. But then you have other guys that, Charlie Blackmon, who really does become kind of the face, and he's kind of perfect. He looks like a mountain man for in Denver for Colorado. So I don't know. That'd be an interesting documentary behind the scenes of the Rockies.
For
What's
sure.
really going on there?
Right. And then, one of the big things that every team was looking for pitching. And of course, from Angels, every pitcher that went off the board that might have been somebody they targeted meant, once again, failure for the Angels. Because like Kevin Gossman, he went to Toronto. Looking strong in the AL East. Carlos Rodon, who was after the lockout ended, signed in March 14th. He went to the Giants.
Yeah.
And so you look at some of these different. There was Eduardo Rodriguez, was early on to Detroit. Robbie Ray, last year's Cy Young, ended up in Seattle. People I don't think Robbie Ray was coming to the Angels, but it's like I think it hurts a little bit when you lose him to somebody in your own division.
Yeah, I think so, especially because that they could have made an offer, and maybe they did, but you don't know that.
Right. They didn't talk about it. So yeah, the Rangers, John Gray was a solid signing for their pitching staff. The Rangers definitely trying to make it, to move up, and this is a good year to do it with more playoff spots available. Zach Greinke went back, what seems like it's going to be his last year in baseball, because he went back to Kansas City where it all started, back where it all began. Alex Cobb, who I'd hoped, and I think a lot of Angels fans hope would stay there, moved up to San Francisco as well. They re-signed a couple of their pitchers in Alex Wood and Anthony DeSclafani. So there were a lot of there were pitchers moving, just none of them, some of them staying put, none of them coming to the Angels, which was a sad state of affairs for the Angels. But what are you going to do? They just seem to have an aversion to high quality starting pitching. But once again, on paper, and the Dodgers too picked up. They re-signed Danny Duffy, who they had grabbed from the Royals last year, who was injured and is still injured, but they went ahead and signed him again. And he says, I have unfinished business with the Dodgers. I need to show some. So see, tons of moves. I think that probably the one that I was the most for out of all the moves that happened, I was the happiest to see was once we got pretty much all the big names off of the list for the free agents. I asked you, now what happens to Tio Alberto? Yeah. Where does Albert Pujols end up? Somebody's got to sign him. When I love to see him come back with the Dodgers, yeah, I didn't want to see him again with the Angels because the Angels don't deserve him.
Yeah,
but
no.
We just found out recently that he has re-signed for what he has announced is his final year in the major leagues, and he's doing it where it all began for him too, in St. Louis. And if there's anybody that would make me buy a St. Louis Cardinal jersey or a hat, it's Albert Pujols.
Oh yeah, and that's really cool. I mean, they've got Yadier Molina. This is going to be his final season. Adam Wainwright, I think, has announced this is his final season. So yeah, the going away, the what do they call it? The tour. They'll have their at every park they play, they should be.
Every team's going to hate to see the Cardinals coming in because there's 3 players that are on their going away tour, on their
right.
final.
They're going to, yeah. And I've heard some Cardinal fans say, "Oh, great, we got him. It's fun, but we still need to win." I don't know what they're complaining about when you've got. I mean, how many Gold Gloves did the Cardinals win last season?
More than half of those given away.
And those guys are still playing. So I think the Cardinals are in probably good shape there. But yeah, it'll be cool for those 3, especially for Molina and Pujols to end their career together. So yeah, I think that's really cool. I'm just, I'm glad that they were able to make it happen. It was something that was talked about last season as a possibility. I would love to have had him come back as a Dodger, but knew that wasn't going to happen. So for him to go back to the Cardinals, that's a good move for the Cardinals. And that he can have his farewell tour at every stadium he visits.
All right, we're going to put the wraps on our first episode of season 3. Thanks again to Greg Sullivan from the Carolina Disco Turkeys. It was great to have him in. We hope to have him on maybe at the end of their season so he can fill us in on how things went. And make sure you follow him on Twitter at Disco Turkeys. And actually all social media, they're at Disco Turkeys. You can follow us on Twitter at Sibling Rivalry BB without the A. And then we're on Instagram and Facebook at Sibling Rivalry BB with the A. And then I keep being told all over we need to be on TikTok. So maybe we'll figure that out. And you can see us, doing our thing on TikTok as well. SiblingRivalryBB.com. And next week it'll be opening day.
The real
for many teams.
Opening day. Well, yeah.
We'll talk rosters for Angels and Dodgers. Any big changes around baseball that we see? Any of the any surprises on any rosters for different teams around Major League Baseball?
Yeah, we might have to. On opening day, we might have to bust out the wheel of IL.
You might
already. There's already some, some guys on there that will want to.
That will be returning, and then also when you check out our website, coming soon, we do have SRBB T-shirts, and we'll be coming up with some ways for you to win one. If you don't want to bother winning one, you just think it's cool and you want to buy one, we'll let you know how to do that as well. And like I said, next week we'll talk about opening day rosters. We'll take a look at where the college rankings stand and see if Texas tumbles farther. And we'll also look at each team and how the Dodger lineup looks, how the Angels lineup looks, and throw out some of the things that happened with the CBA, some of the rule changes, and that. So until next week, thanks for listening to the Sibling Rivalry Baseball Podcast.